Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us this morning, or in Steve's case, this afternoon. My name is Derek McPherson. I'm the Vice President Mining Analyst at Red Cloud Securities, Inc. Today, our presenting company is North Stawell Minerals, a new Australian-listed gold explorer in the Victorian goldfields. North Stawell is taking the geologic understanding of theory that has expanded resources and reserves at the Stawell mine and applying it to the on-strike trend to the north. So I look forward to having an update from Steve Tambinas, who's the CEO of North Stawell, will be presenting today on behalf of the company. As usual, for the format for today's webinar, we're going to get an introduction to North Stawell from Steve, and he'll tell us about the company, its approach, and the news flow we have to look forward to. Additionally, after that, as always, we'll take your questions live from the audience. So at any time, write your questions in the chat, and we'll get to as many as we can in the time allotted. To start with, I'll get the exciting part of the disclosures out of the way, and then we'll turn it over to Steve. So for North Stawell, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the disclaimers on page 2 of North Stawell's corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only. It should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent commentary on North Stawell for applicable disclosures. So now I'll turn it over to Steve to provide an overview on the company.
Okay, thanks very much, Derek. Okay, North Stawell Minerals listed 24th of September this year. We raised $20 million on the Australian Stock Exchange. And our exploration area is 500 square kilometres of ground immediately above the Stawell Gold Mine. The Stawell Gold Mine's been in operation pretty much since 1860. It's had a very good history in the last 40 years. And I'll get into that in a couple of minutes, but I just thought I'd do a quick introduction to our board and management. We've been exceptionally lucky, I think, to get Jerry Ellis, the ex-chairman of BHP Minerals, to join us as chairman. He's been quite engaged with us in the last 6 months since he's joined, and I think it's just wonderful to have a man of his caliber advising North Stawell. But what's particularly good for us is that we have two seasoned explorationists on the board, and that's Graham Brown and Alastair Waddell. These gentlemen have they're career exploration geologists. They've found ore bodies in multiple commodities all over the world, and it's just very good for us to be able to draw on their experience and give us a little bit of guidance on our exploration work over the next couple of years. So we've got Campbell Olson from Arade Capital. Campbell put together a deal 3 years ago to purchase the Stawell Gold Mine from Kirkland Lake, and it's gone into production, and it's been doing some pretty good things in the last few years, and that's another thing that I'll touch on during the presentation. But our exploration manager is Brad Robinson. He comes across to us from Stawell Gold Mines, and in the last 2.5 years, Brad and his team have discovered over 600,000 ounces of gold at the Stawell Gold Mine, which is, it's got a 5 million ounce production history since 1860, but to find more than 10% of that within a couple of years is just, it's a very admirable result. And Brad's absolutely enthusiastic about the 17 similar domes that we have in our tenure to the north of the Stawell Gold Mine, and we welcome him to lead a lot of our exploration work. So in summary, we have a large tenement package to the north of the Stawell Gold Mine. We have 50 strike kilometres in which to do our work over the next 2 years. We're fully funded. We've just raised $20 million to get going. We have a very aggressive drilling budget, 75,000 metres of drilling over the next 2 years. An exceptionally good exploration team to conduct this work, and pretty good investor support as well. So from that perspective, we're off to a very good start. We've got over 40 gold targets identified to date, of which there are 17 basalt domes, which are the structures that host Stawell gold mines, 5 million ounces of mineralisation. So they will be our priority targets. We're chasing large ore bodies. I mean, if we can find one of these basalt domes mineralised, these things have multi-million ounce potential. And we believe that this tenement package, which has really been locked up by previous owners of Stawell gold mines over the last 40 years, we think that this is the best of the ground in the Stawell region, and this is a regional play, and we've got the lion's share of the best ground, so it's good. We do know that some of these basalt domes are gold mineralised. There's a small JORC resource of 55,000 ounces on one of the domes called WILDWOOD, and we're just getting ready to start drilling there in November. So hopefully within 4 to 6 weeks we'll have our first of 2 to 3 rigs spinning there. It's a 10,000 metre program. But one thing that's exceptionally good for us is that we've picked up 2 containers full of old exploration data. Some of it's been digitised, a lot of it hasn't, and we just keep finding amazing data sets and information here. So we've put a team of geologists together. This wasn't really a job for a librarian or somebody just to organise this. We've got geos going through everything, digitising it, classifying it, and we're just rebuilding a fairly impressive GIS or electronic database of all the data, and I'll show you a few images further in the presentation. And as said, we're kicking off at WILDWOOD in the next 4 to 6 weeks with our first 10,000 metre drill program. So one thing that's to our advantage is that the company North Stawell Minerals is really a spin-off from Stawell Gold Mines. We have the ability to share their premises, resources and people, which is very good for us because we just can skirt around a lot of the time-consuming issues with establishing a new business. We'll be able to hit the ground running. They have a fantastic core yard on site, which is currently handling about 1,000 metres of underground drill core per week, but they have plenty of additional capacity. So I think it's going to be good to be able to mix our exploration team with SGM's team, and what's better than anything else here is that we can go underground at any time. We can actually look, see and touch this magnificent Magdala gold ore body, and then apply what we see and what we learn to the northern exploration. So Victoria over the last 4 to 5 years has undergone a renaissance. It's been the poor cousin of gold exploration in Australia for the last 30, 40 years at least. Historically, Victoria was the largest producing gold state in Australia until about the 70s or 80s when West Australia overtook it. But it was a Canadian company, Kirkland Lake Gold, which is basically to blame for this massive resurgence in interest in Victorian gold. At Fosterville, they found 3 million ounces at about an ounce to the tonne. They produced over 700,000 ounces in the last 12 months. It's the world's highest grade and most profitable mine. And this has basically been the draw card to reactivating interest in Victorian exploration. So there are currently 29 listed gold explorers and producers in Victoria. More are coming in. I think that in 3 to 6 months' time, you'll probably see that in the high 30s. And the Stawell gold mine resumed production in early 2019. It's had very good success on its Magdala basalt dome. More than 600,000 ounces of new resources were discovered over a 2.5-year period in an area which was written off for decades as just being unprospective. There was no economic gold there. That was the conventional thinking. So SGM's geology team has turned that line of thinking on its head, and only a couple of weeks ago, they drilled a 98-metre intercept at 5.8 grams a tonne, demonstrating that this mine, continues to deliver. It's a function of exploration and a function of drill meters. The more drilling you do, it's strange, but the more successful you can be. So our tenement package is basically running along a mineralised corridor running north-northwest from the Stawell gold mine. This image here is pretty good because the targets in red are outlined. These are what we're pursuing in the next 2 years. But in summary, the best way to look at this is it's absolutely a target-rich environment. Not only do we have 17 domes in here to follow up and drill, we have a lot of basalts and intrusives, porphyries in this area. There's alteration halos and quite a bit of structural complexity that I don't think has really been unravelled to the extent it should be, given where we are today. And there's the geophysics and geochemistry. A lot of this is from the 80s, 90s. It's pretty ancient data. There's better data sets available today. So we're concurrently going to be modernising the geophysics, geochemistry, and structural geology, whilst we're drilling our priority targets as well. So I think that what we have here is just a fantastic exploration opportunity. It's a geologist's dream to be here. We're well funded to do it, and we have a magnificent drill budget to do the exploration work. So I'll just spend a minute or two talking about Wildwood. This is a basalt dome 25 kilometres north of the Stawell gold mine. What's very interesting here is that it was drilled in the early 2000s, 2006, and another drilling program in 2012. A small, a modest 55,000 ounce resource was announced from that work. But what we've done is we've digitized all of the historic information, put it into a 3D package called Leapfrog. And we can absolutely clearly see the mineralized trends here, the direction of plunge of mineralization. And we can see where a lot of the earlier explorers had either not drilled deep enough in some instances, and in others they drilled too deep. So I think, what we're doing is just following these gold trends. This 10,000 metre program will test that, and if successful, we should be able to add quite a significant gold resource to the existing one. So it's open along strike and at depth. It's a 6.5 kilometre long basalt dome, and what you're looking at here in this image is really only 2.5 kilometres. So there's quite a bit more work to do here, and the benefit to us is that we know it's already gold mineralised. The question now is, how gold mineralised is it? And that's one question that we intend to answer. So this is just a summary of the geological interpretation we did through our 3D modelling. The image on the right just shows the initial fence lines of drilling that we'll be putting into place. So in terms of the other tenure, we have the BARRABOOL property. That's our northernmost property. We've got more than half a dozen priority targets in that area, some very interesting alteration halos around granites and alkaline intrusives in the region. And it's the same with GLENORCHY, which is immediately west of where we're drilling at Wildwood. So GLENORCHY will probably be our second drilling campaign where we've commenced discussions with landowners. We're getting land access organised, And I think that this is something that we'll be drilling in the new year concurrently whilst Wildwood is being drilled out. Now, further to the south and closer to the Stawell gold mine, two tenements. The Germania tenement is something that's quite interesting to me. It's a basalt dome 10 kilometres north of the Stawell gold mine. Last year, it's actually got a lot of parallels to the discovery of an exploitation of the Stawell mine itself. It was initially an alluvial mining area. The old timers quickly found steeply dipping quartz veins, which were, half ounce or 16, 18 grams to the ton. And they started mining it, but what they didn't do was get down to the basalt dome, which in this case here is probably 500 or 600 meters below surface. Last year, an 800-meter diamond hole was drilled, which clipped all the, it showed identical geology, alteration, and mineralization to the Magdala Dome. It didn't actually hit the basalt, but they were getting good hits, and the best hit was nearly a metre at 4.5 grams per tonne. We've prioritised it for further drilling. We're doing a bunch of geophysical work over this to improve our drill hole targeting resolution, and this is the wild card in the tenement package, and something that I'm very excited about doing a lot more work on. The deep lead property, deep lead mining was all the alluvial mining that a lot of that which occurred in this area. It's quite shallow cover. We've got drill ready targets in there as well. Wall is something that's quite intriguing. It's a massive alteration halo against or adjacent to a granite to the immediate north and west of us. So we've got targets galore here. Our difficult task here will be to prioritise which targets to work on first, and we'll be doing some good things with the geochemistry and geophysics to assist us making those decisions. So, in summary, we're a new company. We've only listed a couple of weeks ago. We've raised $20 million. We have a highly aggressive drilling and exploration program over the next 2 years. We will be drilling, doing more drilling, and then drilling again. There'll be a lot of news flow coming out of this. We're unashamedly targeting Magdala-style mineralisation with multi-million ounce potential. We're not after 10, 20 or 50,000 ounce quartz veins. We're after something quite more, with considerably, a couple of orders of magnitude larger. We have a fantastic ground position. I think it's the pick of the litter in terms of the Stawell mineralised corridor, and we have a magnificent data set that we can work with. And what's interesting about the data set is that at one stage, Western Mining kicked off this mine in the early 80s, but over an 11-year period, there were 7 owners. And as a new owner had come in, they'd bring in new exploration teams. They spent sufficient funds to keep the tenements in good standing. But it was haphazard is probably too strong an expression, but it wasn't really a coordinated build-up of work. I don't think that this exploration ground has been given its due justice, and this is something that we're going to do over the next 2 years. So I think in the next 2 years we can do a hell of a lot more and a lot better than what's been done in the previous 40, building upon the good work that was done. We're drilling in the next four to 6 weeks, or we'll commence drilling in the next 4 to 6 weeks, and we will be quite busily drilling for the next 2 years. So that's it, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve, and that was a great, succinct summary of the company. It's a simple story, but there's a lot of opportunity, I think. Remember, just a reminder to everyone on the line as we move into the Q&A portion, feel free to type your questions at any time into the chat. We'll start with a couple of my questions, Steve. I guess looking back to the creation of North Stawell, obviously this is asset was purchased privately. The private company, as far as everyone can tell, is doing a reasonably good job operating the Stawell mine, and that's and obviously with the exploration success they've had. What do you think motivated them to spin this out into a public company? And then also, and what do you think their motivation for that was?
I think that's fairly straightforward. The mine has got a history of being quite hungry for tons. The focus was always on the mining lease itself over the Magdala Dome. Exploration to the north was always given secondary or tertiary consideration, and their focus from buying the mine in late 2017 was to refurbish the mill, refurbish the underground workings, and start delineating resources, which they've done quite successfully. I mean, they're pouring gold twice a week there. They're as happy as they could be. When they realised the potential of the northern tenure and started unravelling this massive amount of historical data, there's 160 kilometres of drill data in this northern tenure area. They had two choices. They could fund it out of cash flow over a 4 or 5 year period. But the idea was put out to, well, why don't we list, raise some more funds and hit this quite hard? And that was the decision that they made. So they're giving away a little bit of the upside by going public. But this allows North Stawell Minerals to focus on the regional exploration. Their mine geology team will focus specifically on their Magdala Dome underground exploration, and they're happy, we're happy. But this is something that really justifies a large team of regional exploration people, and that I'm talking about North Stawell now, but
right.
Let's Stawell Gold Mines continue its business.
Effectively, they couldn't commit the resources to move it ahead as fast as they would like, and so they might end up having to buy it back later, but they're giving up some of that upside to investors in the interim.
Yeah, exactly.
What attracted you to this opportunity? Obviously, you weren't part of the private company previously, so what brought you to North Stawell?
Well, for my sins, I'm ex-Western Mining, and if you have a look at Western Mining assets over the decades that have been passed on to other owners, they've all tended to do pretty damn well. So I heard about Stawell Gold Mines when I joined Western Mining in 1995. I think that at that stage, they'd just sold it to MPI, which was another consortium.
Right.
But so I'd heard a lot of stories about what was there at Stawell. I'd spoken to a lot of the geologists, and this is a bit of a dream job now to go and finish off what they started. So I'm very excited to be here.
Right. Now, I guess now you've only been in the seat for a few months, but we've actually been talking for a few months to get to this point. And obviously, focus early on was raising money. But what has you excited today? Obviously, you looks like you're just back from the office at this point. So what has you excited today is about North Stawell?
Well, that'd be a better question to ask my geologists. I mean, I've just brought in 2 weeks ago a West Australian geologist that worked with me on a job in Tanzania for a few years, and we did exceptionally well over there. But he has come in, he's started to unravel all of the data. I mean, he's had access for the last couple of months to the electronic data set, but now that he's started to pull these boxes of data out, he's going, Steve, these drill holes aren't in the GIS. This data's not in the GIS. Here's a bunch of geochemical work as well. that's what really excites my team of people at the moment. I mean, this is just a treasure trove of information, which is going to be very valuable in directing our exploration efforts and making us spend our money much in a much more focused fashion. So we'll save time and we'll have better drilling targets out of this. So I have a highly excited team of people out there at the moment. Some days I actually have to tell them, go home, come back tomorrow with a fresh head. But I've just got this crew of exceptionally motivated, enthusiastic people. They can see the potential here, and what gets them excited gets me excited.
Now, I guess you mentioned that, with respect to the data. Obviously, as you said, you've inherited tons of data, and some of it's in the database and some of it isn't. I guess what's the? I guess obviously you're going out to drill at Wildwood. I mean, you don't know for sure, but are you comfortable that you've got most of the data from Wildwood and sort of those initial drill targets?
Wildwood's
process.
Wildwood's a bit of a different beastie because there's been so much drilling there. When you put this into a 3D modeling package, you can follow the mineralization quite clearly, and I don't think you could do that back in the early 2000s. I mean, that was when 3D modeling just was really at its infancy. It was expensive.
Right.
You needed specialists to do this, and now I've got 3 or 4 geos working, with some amazing software on this as we speak. So I think we can see more today than you could see 10 to 20 years ago. And
right.
For us, Wildwood is low risk. That's why we're drilling. If we didn't think it was ready to drill, if we knew, if we thought, well, we've got to spend 6 months doing some geophysics or other work on there, we'd do it. But we're very, very comfortable about this, and let's see what happens when we start getting drill results.
I guess that's where the truth comes out. I guess though there's exactly. There's a bit of an exercise on your part, because you're not just exploring in the field. Because you're going through this data, you're sort of exploring the data set or the new data that you're turning up as well.
Sure. And look, you've got a lot of cover in this area as well. I mean, by the time we get 50 kilometres to the north of us, you're looking at up to 50 metres of cover in places, and that makes exploration a little bit more difficult. But in Western Australia, nobody blinks at having to drill 50, 80, 100 metres of cover, and Brad's a West Australian trained geologist. Alan, our new senior exploration geologist, he's been chasing nickel targets in hundreds of meters of cover. They're up to the task. Our methods are up to the task. So it's going to be a combination of desk work, but as well as getting out there and doing new things. There are large areas in our tenure that have never had geochemistry put over them. And I'm asking why. And we can see signs of workings and all that. So you know that the old timers have been there exploring. They wouldn't waste time to dig pits and mine things. And it hasn't been tested. So this is wide open.
Yeah, you don't dig anything by hand unless you know there's gold there.
Exactly. So a lot of opportunities. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Now, I guess that leads really well into my next question. How are you going about prioritizing those targets? You have a large land package. There's lots of data. There's lots of historic drilling. Obviously, there's some modern work that you're doing, geophysics. You mentioned soil sampling, but how do you go about ranking and prioritizing targets? What's the methodology that you guys are using? Because the simple fact is you have a lot of them. This isn't a 1 or 2 target thing that you're after, right?
And look, that's the area where you need some good geologists and some disciplined reasoning and processes in place to make these decisions. We're not going to if we had to split our 75,000 meter program into 40 gold targets, I don't think you'd get a very good result. You need to pick off the top 2 or 3.
Right.
And this is always about ranking, and then on a monthly basis, re-ranking, reprioritizing based on data that you get.
Right.
You know, we might write off 2 or 3 areas, and all of a sudden the 17th area comes up to the forefront. You just don't know, but we are disciplined. We've all done this before, and I think we've got a pretty good process in place to do that. And we've got some pretty good people looking over our shoulders as well. I mentioned 2 of the directors, Alistair and Graham. They'll keep an eye on us too, that we don't go off with the fairies with our ideas.
Well, I guess that's the advantage, and I guess it's also one of those things where you're pulling through this historic data, and you find a data set that all of a sudden goes, well, how come we haven't done anything up here yet? Or we got to go look there. I guess you as through the course of your presentation, you talked about a few of the areas and the specific targets that you guys are working on. Is there anything that, I kind of term this the sleeper targets, or things that are kind of off the radar now for investors, but something that could surprise them in the future?
Look, there's a couple that come to mind straight away. I mean, I think Germania is probably the pick of the bunch. It's we're seeing these basaltic domes. They have a periodicity, or they just recur every 10 to 5 to 10 kilometers. I like this one. I mean, it was a big alluvial field. It's quite elevated ground. It means that you've got a hell of a lot more silica there, and the rest of the terrain in that area has eroded. Mm-hmm. The old timers mined down to 40 meters in depth where the water beat them. They didn't have the money or the capital for pumps back in the day, in the late 1800s. So they mined what they could, and then it was left alone. So they mined out the alluvial gold. They mined the easy or shallow hard rock gold. And there's only, I don't know, a couple of dozen drill holes there, shallow ones, and I don't think they've been placed all that well either. So let's see what happens there. But that's my first one, and there are some magnificent alteration halos around some of the intrusives to the north. So that's in the Deep Lead Prospect and BARRABOOL, which is EL5443. So we've got our ideas, we're bringing people in, and we have no shame. We're bringing in some pretty smart consultants, structural people to assist us and have a look at what we're doing there. So I don't think we'll have any trouble prioritizing what we have in front of us. But what we're trying to do here is take 500 kilometers of ground, bring that down to the 50 square kilometers of the most prospective ground, but then we need to bring that down to 5 square kilometers of prospective ground. So that's there's some pretty mean work involved there to selectively target the best of that 500 square kilometer package. Right,
and that's the challenge, but I think it's also the opportunity as well.
Absolutely.
I guess speaking of probably my last question on exploration, but when do you expect to just remind us, when do you expect to start drilling, and then when can investors expect sort of first results?
Well, look, we're planning to commence drilling in November, so it'll be in the last 2 weeks of November that we'll get the first rig turning. It's predominantly farmland where we are, so the locals have had a fantastic season this year. The local farmer at Wildwood has said, "You guys are welcome, but let me get my crop in first." So we'll start drilling in the areas where there are no crops, but as soon as that harvester goes through that area, we're going to be onto it. And from then on, I'm hoping we'll actually be drilling 2 to 3 prospects concurrently for the next 2 years. Well, we have to do that to get through our 75,000 meter budget. So there'll be a lot of news flow.
Okay. And then maybe just back up to the capital structure for one follow-up question there. You have a couple of major shareholders that control significant portions of the company, Leviathan Resources and the MLIA Syndicate. Can you tell us a little bit about them and sort of how they got involved and what their intention is, I guess?
Well, the Leviathan Resources is basically the Victor Smorgon Group out of Melbourne. They're a very wealthy industrialist family. They're billionaires. They play in a lot of different spaces, from real estate to processing plants. They do a lot of things, and they are 60-40 owners of the Stawell gold mine. MLIA are a group of wealthy Asian investors and these two companies have co-invested in numerous transactions over the years. They know each other. It's long-term money, it's sticky money, and they're very, very pleased with how they've gone with their initial foray into gold mining at Stawell Gold Mine. So they're just very keen to see us succeed there, because this could provide long-term feed for the Stawell mine.
Right. And then I guess one last question, and this is obviously something that's something we're asking all of our presenting companies. How is your team managing COVID? I know the restrictions are different in Australia than there are other places in the world and in Victoria. How are you managing COVID with respect to, getting people into site, and then also getting your field work done? And do you think it's going to impact your sort of exploration timelines?
Well, the fortunate thing for us is that exploration work or field work is quite isolated. We'll come across farmers and locals. We all maintain our social distancing. The Stawell Gold Mine, like most other mines in Australia, and I'm sure your mines in Canada, they've brought in quite rigid COVID restrictions. Everybody wears masks, and this is before it was made mandatory in Victoria to wear masks. Right. We're distancing, we've got cross-shifting, and in a way that you're just minimising the potential for any outbreak on your people. Mm-hmm. So we've been very, very proactive on that, and touch wood, there hasn't been a COVID case in the Stawell region, which is fantastic. I think there's some good management behind that as well. Right. And it's made it a little bit more difficult to recruit geologists. I've had a few geos from Melbourne that said, "Look, we'd love to drive in 5 days a week and go home to Melbourne on the weekends." That can't happen at the moment because of Melbourne's lockdown restrictions. Now, if they move to Stawell, that's fine, because regional Victoria is actually quite free in relation to metropolitan Melbourne. So the short answer to your question is, it's made things a little bit more difficult. We're very aware of it, and our focus here is to look after the community, look after our people. And we're doing that. The drilling companies in Victoria, they know what's going on. We have a number of drilling contractors at the Stawell Gold Mine. They know what they're doing. They're managing COVID, in the workplace, or COVID safe practices in the workplace. So no issue really. Great.
Well, I think that does it for questions that we have. Thank you, Steve, for joining us in what is your evening. And thank you everyone on the line for joining us this morning. It's kind of the two groups that make this work. Just a reminder for everybody on the line, we have a full slate of webinars coming up, and along with our fall conference in a couple of weeks. You can go to Red Cloud's news and media page to register for our upcoming webinars and replays. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.